Hi everyone, my name is Sonal Dave and I'm an award-winning Celebrant, Toastmaster and public speaking expert. And I'm here today extremely excited as I've launched my journals specifically for the neurodiverse community, both adults and children, to help them just have a safe place where they can spell out, write out, draw, doodle through the journal and make sure that they just feel safe. But the important thing also about the journal is that not only is it about it being a safe place, but it's a place where they can express themselves. So often it's difficult to really say what you're thinking in words. So sometimes you can do that by drawing. It could be by a color you choose when you're drawing or doodling. So the journal has mandalas in it, which you can use, some blank pages at the back. There are some very inspirational quotes throughout, as well as the My Day pages, where anyone who's using the journal can choose which sections that they want to complete. So I will talk about that a bit more later, but at this point, I want to bring up my wonderful guest for today's interview. She's just sitting in the waiting room and she's smiling away, which is always a good thing. So please, a round of applause and a little bit of a drum roll as I invite Kim Soanes to join me. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Sonal. How are
I'm
you?
I'm good. I'm good. I've been really enjoying the interviews. It's just been so different with each person, and to be quite honest, I'm learning so much from all of you as well. So, before I'm not going to tell everyone who you are and what you do, but I'm going to give that question over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name's Kim Soanes, and I am a mum of two, a wife, and a business owner. I'm an AAT licensed accountant, and I own a small accountancy practice called Soanes Accountancy Services. It's small but growing. There's 4 of us currently, 4 employees, and I'm really passionate about teaching or showing business owners how to kind of know their numbers, and so they're able to make business decisions, really important strategic business decisions from their business finances and knowing their numbers. So they're just not running the businesses blind, basically, which a lot of business owners do. And I'm also dyslexic, and I've got 2 children. One is dyslexic and the other one has ADHD.
And where are you based in terms of your business?
I'm based in Bishop Stortford,
Okay, so
which is,
it's
if you
useful
haven't
to
heard of Bishop Stortford, we're kind of north of London on the Essex-Hertfordshire border. I always say we're near Stansted Airport because people seem to know where Stansted Airport is.
Oh, and it's always useful to know because there may be somebody just on your doorstep who's going, actually, I really need to speak to somebody and could do it over coffee rather than just a Zoom call. So that's really useful information. So, Kim, from your experience, could you name maybe 1 or 2 challenges that you've seen face communities today?
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a few examples here, but I think we'll start with recently. I was told by it's actually the Senko at my children's previous primary school that, in her experience, she finds that sometimes parents don't want to accept that their children could be neurodivergent, and I think that potentially comes from a lack of understanding about the conditions, because I really feel and really believe that whilst, yes, there's some struggles with these neurodivergent conditions, there's also massive strengths. I like to call them superpowers. And that it's actually really, I would never not want to be dyslexic. I feel it's my strength. I'm different, but in a good way, and so are my children. So I really am passionate about kind of bringing that message, and also early diagnosis. And the primary school that I was talking about has actually asked me back next week to talk about 2 new parents at the school, to talk about my experience with diagnosis, to kind of bring awareness. But it's also, so my son, who's got ADHD, he's recently started secondary school. Now, this kind of didn't come about in primary school, and I think it's because they're more nurturing and they understand the child more, and potentially when there's a behavioural issue, they won't make too much of it. They'll just send him to run around the field or something like that. But it's very different in secondary school. And I think his ADHD traits, I suppose, like the moving and the his attention span and that kind of thing, he's already getting into trouble for. He's already getting behaviour points. And these are things I feel like he can't actually control himself. Or it might just be a learning curve. I don't know. We'll see over time. It's a journey, isn't it? And but yeah, I mean, there doesn't seem, with secondary school, it seems to be a lot more kind of formal and strict. And I just think he'll struggle in this kind of environment learning, really.
And did you find with your, I was going to say, did you find with your experience of both your own and your children that diagnosis was easy to get? As in you could get the appointments and the doctor knew what was happening. And did you find that easy? Because the other people I've been speaking to as well have all indicated that to get the diagnosis, it was a pretty rough journey to get there, and you almost had to push doors open to say, no, there's something here, please do some checks.
I mean, for us, we kind of took a shortcut, and unfortunately it cost a lot of money, so it wasn't easy, and it wouldn't have been easy. So for my daughter, it was her year 6 teacher that picked up the signs of dyslexia. And until then, I didn't even know what dyslexia was, really. I thought it was that you couldn't really read properly. I was a bit ignorant to the condition. And so once the year 6 teacher told me about this, I went and researched it, obviously. And also, because she'd always struggled in school, with this coming up, I really felt like in year 6, especially with their SATs at the end of the year, and then obviously on to secondary school, it's a really important year. And I just felt like a diagnosis might be the key to really helping her. And it really was. So once we got that diagnosis, we went private. And actually, I think with a dyslexia, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that you can only go private to get a diagnosis. Well, that's what I was told anyway. The school weren't able to do it, and I don't think you could see a GP for that condition. So we did pay to get a private diagnosis, and it was the best thing we could have done. The school did already start to put things in place to help her. But once we knew, we had the report, we were able to see what her struggles were, where her strengths were. She was able to start to understand herself. And I have to say, that was about 4 years ago. Whilst initially she did really struggle with the fact that she was different, I think it's in a really impressionable time. She didn't want to be different from her friends. But equally, she was a really hard worker. And I think that putting some little processes in place, where she was always struggling to kind of even be, hit average scores in tests and that kind of thing, she really smashed her SATs and she did really, really well. So I've just seen what a difference it can make to get that diagnosis, putting those processes in place and giving the child that confidence. And she's gone on to secondary school to, and she is a hard worker, but to equally achieve. So she's actually doing really, really well.
And it's interesting what you're saying, because I think everyone has also said that once they had the diagnosis and they could put, processes and things in place to help support, manage, guide, it was a different story to what was happening before. And you almost kind of wonder, why is it so difficult? Because let's be honest, it can't be just, 1% of the whole of the UK population that's dyslexic. The numbers must be high, and whether it's autism, dyslexia, ADHD, and the numerous other neurodiverse conditions that are out there, there needs to be a better process for picking this up, and
Definitely,
then finding the route to, put things in place for it. And it just does surprise me that this is not an overnight thing, like COVID happened and suddenly all these things were put into place, and everything was there for the world to, support everyone. But this is something that an individual who does end up getting diagnosed is going to live with through their life. So surely the front end of the system has to be stronger.
Definitely. And if with my experience of ADHD, I mean, that's different. We could have gone on the doctor's waiting list to get my son diagnosed with ADHD, but I was told that that could take years. So he was, it kind of came about at a similar point for him as well. And COVID kind of affected his schooling, and he, as one of his ADHD kind of struggles, he struggles with his mental health, and it was that side of things that brought things to a head. And I reached out to the school because I didn't know where else to go, and we didn't really know what was going on at that point. And they worked with him on a one-to-one basis to see what they thought was going on, and they did actually come back to me and say, we think he's got ADHD. And then they said you could go and see a doctor, but if and go and see your GP. But in their experience, it would have taken a long, long time. And this was in year 6 for him as well. So we went to see a consultant privately, which again, it's a lot of money. But obviously, I really feel like getting that diagnosis is so important that I was willing to pay that money to do that for my children. And for me as a dyslexic, I was an undiagnosed dyslexic. So I know what it's like to go through adulthood, knowing you've got struggles. And actually, I just thought it was because I was stupid and I was hiding this horrible secret, and it really affected my confidence because I felt like I was hiding the secret from people. And it wasn't until I got the dyslexic diagnosis that I was able to actually understand my struggles more and understand my strengths and put my struggles in a box and say, that's my dyslexia. It's not because I'm stupid, it's my dyslexia. And actually, I can now put processes in place to help with those struggles. And it's really freed me. It really has. Like, I would never have spoken in public before my dyslexic diagnosis. Literally, I wouldn't have done it. And now I'm speaking to you. I'm going to be speaking in front of a group of parents. I've also signed up to speak in front of a big audience at a trade show in November for kind of a group of, thank you. We have a group of landscape gardening clients. So I'm going to a landscape gardening trade show and speaking there. So although I'm petrified, I would never have done it before the dyslexic diagnosis. It's just my confidence has grown dramatically. I'm able to what I call kind of grow a proper business, whereas before I was freelancing, I didn't think I had the ability to grow a business. So I just feel like that diagnosis is so important, and I really want to start talking about this more to try and bring awareness to how important the early diagnosis is, because in my experience, it's really life-changing.
How did family, the school, the workplace, how did they react once, you were able to say, well, I'm dyslexic. One of my children's dyslexic, one's dyslexic and got ADHD. What kind of experiences did you have from kind of other people?
It was varied. I mean, my workplace, I'm the boss, so and I'm dyslexic, so that, I do think that workplaces need to start hiring more diverse people. I really do, because I really think that there are strengths in these conditions, and you have to have a diverse work team. Like my team I've got somebody that works for me who can proofread the stuff I write, because I can't write something and put it out to public because it just wouldn't make sense. So she proofreads it and edits it for me. So you have to have somebody with, people with opposite kind of skill set to you. The primary school have always been super supportive. And actually, to be fair, the secondary school have as well, if I've ever had an issue. And it's the Senkos, really. If you speak to the Senkos and you're down as being diagnosed with a condition and you're having an issue, they really do have your back. Friends and family, I think people have different opinions. I mean, there's quite a few members of my family who are dyslexic. And there may be some of them that aren't sure kind of whether they even believe in this kind of thing. So yeah, it's varied.
But I think one thing I've definitely picked up from in all the interviews is that it's so important to, if you're feeling something, your gut feeling is telling you something, to, do your best to try and get that diagnosis, because by having that diagnosis, actually doors open for support and help. When you hide it behind closed doors, people don't know what the hell, why is that child behaving like that, or why is Kim never coming to networking events, or whatever it may be. But when people don't know, they don't really know. They don't know. So of course they're going to
No.
react in those ways. But when people do know, they can be more supportive, and they can be like, "Well, Kim, don't worry about it. Send whatever you're going to say, and we'll adjust if it needs to be adjusted, and then don't worry about it. We're there for you on the day." It's that kind of thing. Time and space can be put in place to help. So I definitely know some families where, be it the adult or be it the child, it's glaringly obvious there's a neurodiverse condition, but they're so embarrassed of what the extended family or society are going to say, that they are just, behaving like it doesn't exist. And I genuinely do feel that if they don't have the right person speak to them, so that they can go through the right process, the hard part is going to be, especially for the child, that the child is going to struggle, because we all know children are not always nice to each other. And if they see something or someone being different, and they don't know what it is or understand what it is, then they're going to react. And sometimes that reaction's not always positive, unfortunately. And this comes back to that, from, when children are very young, we don't teach them to celebrate difference, to celebrate that it's okay for, people to be, um, different colors, speak differently, wear glasses, have ginger hair, have different religions. We don't teach that. It's not like part of the school syllabus, is it, to teach difference? A little bit of it's done, and I'm sure some schools do it better than others. But I just think it's so important, an important message that I'm hearing from you as well as others that I've interviewed. It's, don't be embarrassed and don't feel ashamed. You Once you know what is going on, it's easier to manage and be supported. But if you hide behind closed doors, then you're kind of going it alone, and will end up in a very lonely place. And that loneliness will affect your mental health, which then takes you down, a different journey.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that. And also, from my own experience, I didn't really when I was at school, it wasn't really kind of known about dyslexia and those different kind of conditions. And so I struggled at school, and rather than try and struggle and fail, I turned into a bit of a rebel, really, because if you're not trying and you fail, it's because you're not trying and not because you're stupid. So I think that's really important, that, children are helped as early as possible so that they can achieve. Because if children are struggling silently, then they might just check out and not try, because if it's really hard and they're not getting any help, they might just stop trying, and then they won't be happy. And like you say about the mental health, and it's just kind of escalates, doesn't it? So yeah, I just feel like the diagnosis is everything, and children can really achieve with these conditions. Like, they're not. When I was reading about dyslexia, it was saying you have to have at least average intelligence to be dyslexic, if not higher intelligence, because it's those differences in ability, and then where you're really struggling, it's those highs and lows that kind of make up a dyslexic, basically. And that's how you can get diagnosed with dyslexia. It's some things you're really, really good at, and then some things are really weak at. And there's not kind of if you're plotting it on a graph, it's not going in a straight line, it's going to go up and down like this.
So let's talk about journaling. Do you journal?
Not in the typical sense. I don't sit down and kind of write about my day or stuff like that. However, I write everything, well, not write as in pen, but with I've got a phone, obviously, like everybody, and I have a notepad on my phone, and I have hundreds of notes because I have to literally, something comes in my head, I have to get it down, because if I don't, then it'll be gone. That's one of my dyslexic struggles, I suppose. I have things pop into my head which could be really good ideas, you know, always thinking of new things to do with my business and new ways to take it, and things to help my staff, all these different things, and I have to get them down immediately. So I suppose that's kind of my way of journaling, and also writing out things on my phone, writing out like conversations that I've had with clients and stuff, so I don't forget it. So yeah, from that point of view, not typically journaling, but I think that I do get stuff down. I have to.
It's interesting you say not typically journaling, because another thing that's come out of all the interviews is there is no one way to journal. You know, it could be a book and you're writing in the book. For example, my journal. It could be that you're using my journal and you're actually drawing what's happened in your day. It could be that you're doodling, you know, stick men, doodles, etc., what's happened in your day. There are. I'm a I vocalize my day. I'm a communicator. It's what I do, and whether it's to my husband or it's to my uh, two dogs, you know, they will have to hear what's happened to me in that day. But so there are different ways, and some people will use voice notes to say to note down what's happened in their day. To-do list, notes on various phones. They have different versions. Whether you're using the stylus on the phone that allows you to, or whether you're, you know, tapping in whatever that note is. So I think, yeah, you're right. There are so many different ways, but it's finding the right way for you. And for you, you found a way that works, and actually not only works, but it actually helps you to remember what else you need to do. So, and do your children journal at all?
No, not really. I think that I'm trying to think. Not really. I think my son could be inspired to, and I think it would help him actually if he did. My daughter's a lot older now, and she's in those kind of stroppy teenage years, which it may help her as well. But yeah, not at the moment. But I think that it's possibly something that I could introduce to them, because I do really think that it is something that could benefit them.
Yeah, and I think what more and more people are realizing is, because if you had asked me back in 2018 when I started my business, oh, and don't forget to journal every day, I would have said, shut up, I'm not journaling. What's all that's what people do who've got time in their life, you know, to sit down with a book and stuff. But as I've kind of understood journaling more, as my business has grown and I've met lots of people who journal, I've actually realized that as long as you find the right way for you in the concept of journaling, then it can be really useful. And it's when you don't do anything and it's all kept inside that it can be, well, it's definitely not useful, because you're not actually getting into a place of letting go. And when you don't let go of emotions, or anything that might have frustrated you or made you anxious, then what happens is it stays inside and it bottles up, and then it just gets you know, even tighter. And then when it does come out, it's like a little bit of an explosion. Whereas if you're doing it, you don't, I don't believe it's an everyday thing, but as long as you're doing it in a way that works for you, where there is an element of release, I think that. So go ahead and inspire your child. You never know.
Definitely. And it's actually, you mentioning that about bottling it up, it's funny because a few nights ago I actually couldn't sleep for hours. I couldn't sleep, and I had things going round and round in my head, and it's almost like I need to get up in the middle of the night and start writing them down to get them out of my head. And it's something that I am going to do this weekend, because it's in preparation for next week and speaking in front of a group of people, but it's almost like I'm mentally preparing, and I need to get it down and out of my head and onto paper, because I think that as a dyslexic, it's hard to, especially in a stressful environment, it's sometimes hard to recall and bring from memory what you wanted to say. So I find it much better to write it all down in advance, just so it's there and you can almost visualize, like some, you know, visualize it and recall it much better. So yeah, the other, I wish I had kind of a journal the other night when I was laying awake for hours on end with things going around in my head.
Oh, no, you know, like I said, everyone's just got to find their right way. And maybe when you're in bed, maybe it's if you've got voice notes on your phone, that's something you could still, then you don't have to get out of bed into the cold at night. And you could use voice notes. But Kim, thank you so, so much for being here with me today. And I've got a little bit of a quick fire round for you,
Thank you for having
which
me.
I hope you're going to enjoy this fire round, this quick fire round. And what is your favorite animal and why?
That's really easy for me because it's rabbits, and I have 2 mini lops, which I absolutely adore. My family say that I treat them like my babies, and yeah, so it's rabbits for me. Absolutely love them. So
It's
cute.
when people get quite surprised when I say my dogs are my children, and they are. I have to feed them, water them, look after them, take them to the doctors when they're not well. So I totally understand when you say rabbits, if that's what it is
Yeah.
for you. So it, I kind of think I know what your answer might be to this based on your answers so far, but you may surprise me and come up with something very different. Um, if you could do just one thing to change the world to be a better place, what would that be?
That would be, yes, we've touched on it. It would be the, you know, early diagnosis of neurodiverse conditions for people so they can live a full, confident life, knowing their struggles and their strengths with their condition, and just basically, you know, live their best life.
Yeah, and not have to wait for years before they can start the process to get a diagnosis.
Yeah,
I totally
absolutely.
agree with you on that, and I think it is such an important one. Keeping our fingers crossed for this, of course. I've got the sun coming through the blinds at the moment, so I'm looking very funky. Can you see?
Yeah.
Um, and then, who is your favorite superhero and why?
That's a hard one. Okay, so my son's favourite superhero, I'm going to have to go with this one, but for probably a different reason from why my son loves him. So my son's favourite superhero is Spider-Man. Now, I'm not particularly like into the superheroes, but I have been introduced to the Spider-Man movies, and particularly Tom Holland, who plays in the last 3 Spider-Man movies. He's played Spider-Man. Now, Tom Holland is dyslexic, and he's a really good advocate for dyslexia. He talks about it really openly, jokes about his struggles, and yeah, I just think he's a really good advocate for dyslexia, and obviously he's Spider-Man.
Oh, and I did not know that about him. So that's really useful. I'm learning from each speaker who's coming on and being interviewed. I'm learning so much from all of you. So I do want to take another moment just to say thank you so much, Kim. Just hearing you say that you would never do anything like this before, and here you are being interviewed by Sonal, who's a communicator, and it's what I do. I mean, your confidence must have grown in such a way, an immense way, after your diagnosis to have the confidence to be here and do this interview. And for that, absolute total respect. If you've got any final words for everyone who's listening or watching now and maybe watching later?
I really just want to thank you for what you're doing, and I think the work that you're doing is amazing and so important. And from a person who is neurodivergent and has 2 neurodivergent children, thank you for building awareness, and for your journals, which could help so many children with their mental health and coping with their days. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kim. I am going to retire you to the waiting room and then we'll have a little chat a little later. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was the wonderful Kim Soanes. She's in Bishopstortford. I think I probably just said that wrong, but she's over there. Watch the beginning of the video. An accountant by trade, and she's also building her accountancy business. And there's now 4 of them working there, which is just amazing. Um, she herself has dyslexia, one of her children have dyslexia, and the other has dyslexia and ADHD. Yet look at Kim, smiling, growing her business, and now she's even confident to go out there and speak to the world as well. So do get in touch with Kim if you have any questions for her. You can directly go to Kim, or you can put them on any of the places where we can put comments, and Kim or myself will respond to those comments, and give you guidance or direction, whatever it is that you need. Thank you so much once again from me, Sonal Dave. You can see the journals in the back. Don't forget, if you do buy one of the journals, take a little copy of the receipt, use the link to send in your details and your copy of the receipt so that I can put you into the competition, and I'll be drawing the competition next week. Thank you again. I'm Sonal Dave, your award winning Celebrant, Toastmaster, and public speaking expert, and have been just amazed and educated and have found more awareness with each person that I have had the privilege of interviewing. Thank you so much.